Hello everyone and welcome to a new IK video. This is Kincaid from server M14. I get a lot of people asking for my server and it's the first thing I say in each and every video. It is M14 and this is how it looks like. Server M14. Anyway, in this video we're gonna talk about another march, another creative march that I found out in our server. Since you guys pretty much like this video considering the few videos I made last week performance, so I decided to give you another creative march. It is not as free as the previous two, but it is pretty much similar and pretty much strong as well. And of course there's a couple of reports that we're gonna take a look on, pretty much crazy reports. This player managed to beat some pretty much strong players with red skills, so we will take a look and analyze these kind of reports as well. However, let's take a look at the March, the Immortals, the synergy between the Immortals, and of course the skills that he's using. He's ranked 37th. This guy here, Squidward, he's using one of the best marches that I've ever seen that is not using any kind of red skill, pretty much grinding the Immortals. I think he's pretty much a free-to-play player or at least a very low spender. And he recently acquired Chen. Even his artifact is not very that advanced or not that much developed. And of course, all the skills that he is using is free-to-play skills or very easy to acquire skills. Looking at the comp of the Immortals right now, he's using Ragnar Lothbrok, one of my favorite Immortals on the game, and his ultimate skill increases the magical damage received by the enemy by 30%. It lasts for 6 seconds if you have the exclusive artifact, which he doesn't at the moment because it is very expensive. The skill lasts for 7.5 seconds. Anyway, Ragnar is mainly there to unlock Merlin's damage. He helps Merlin to deal even more damage because Merlin is only dealing magical damage. So this is why Ragnar is very powerful. And of course, the specialization he's using is using Sturdy Barrier. Is kind of works like Charles Shields. He applies shields every 7 or every 6 seconds in the fight. The shields absorbs 180% damage. It is pretty much like Charles Shields. However, Charles is much more powerful. Alright, the second Immortal, the second front row Immortal is Yi San-Chen. Yi San-Chen is of course one of the best defensive Immortals. If you have seen my defensive Immortals tier list, he ranks up there in the OP tier, and his skill is yet very simple yet efficient. He reduces the damage in an area by 30%. If you have the exclusive artifact, which he has, it increases the healing received in this area during the skills active by 30%. And of course, he's using Fearless Stance. He increases the resilience rate by 25% and of course reduces the damage taken by 25%. As for the support Immortal, Ken Emperor, and of course no need to talk about Ken Emperor, but of course Battle Excitation to increase the initial energy for Merlin by 200% and to increase the damage for Merlin by 40%. And of course the last Immortal and the main damage dealer in this march, Merlin, which we talked about in the previous video. His skill deals an insane amount of damage, up to 520%. And of course he got his exclusive artifacts, which increases Merlin's energy each and every time he casts his ultimate skill, and of course gives him a bit of heal, a bit of sustain. And the main stats on this artifact is pretty much crazy. As you can see, it is crit rate up to 28% plus 6%, so that's 34% crit rate. He pretty much deals an insane amount of critical damage. And of course he's using Annihilation and Chase. We forgot to talk about Ken Emperor artifact. All you need on this situation is just the Surge. The exclusive effect is pretty much unnecessary or pretty much useless in this state since there's no other wind Immortals in this march. Anyway, let's take a look at the skills. As we mentioned, Merlin's main or ultimate skill deals an insane amount of damage, pretty much one of the highest damaging skills on the game, and it applies to all the enemy team. He deals 520% magical damage, and he's using Annihilation and Chase since he has a very high crit chance. And of course he's using Storm Eye. It increases the crit rate by 25% and increases the magical damage by 55% at max level. So the main damage is concentrated, or it is spelled all around the critical damage that Merlin applies. And of course, Fighting Master to prevent Merlin from getting any kind of control, either against Loki, either against Himiko. The Exile, of course, is a nightmare for any back row damage dealer. So this skill is pretty much useful here. And the skills on Yi Chen or Ragnar, doesn't matter the order there. Weakness to increase the chance of dealing critical damage, of course. Resilience, the lower the enemy team have the resilience, the higher your crit chance, or the higher your chance to deal critical damage. And of course, Rage Blessing to make sure that your immortals cast their skills as soon as you get into the fight. This kind of gives you an early game advantage in the fight. And of course, Weakening Curse, this skill is a nightmare for any Alex user or any Mixed March user that has Alex and Hannibal Barca. It reduces their damage by 70% for the first 45 seconds. Pretty much insane or unbalanced skill, I would like to say. So make sure to acquire this skill as soon as possible. And the skills for Yi Chen. Yi Chen is using Malice, very helpful in the current meta since there is a lot of people are running critical builds. And Resist counters all the magical damage dealers. It increases the damage for 3 units by 50% for the first 18 seconds. Pretty much an OP skill considering that it's a free-to-play skill. And of course, Energy Suppression combined with Rage Blessing. This gives you an advantage in the early game since Rage Blessing gives you the energy advantage. Energy Suppression kind of slows the enemy from acquiring energy for the first 12 seconds, reducing their energy regain speed by 50%. This is pretty much very strong combined with Rage Blessing. And of course, the skills on Ken Emperor. No Escape is still, and I would like to keep saying this each and every time, still a very, very strong skill, unless you're up against someone who have Fountain of Life. Fountain of Life is the only skill that counters No Escape, so make sure to check your enemy skills all the time. If he does not have Fountain of Life, then No Escape is a must-have skill in every situation. Assist to protect Merlin. And by the way, No Escape, the way it works is that it prevents the enemy from gaining any kind of energy for the first 6 seconds if they don't have any kind of control immunity. So if the enemy does not have Fountain of Life, that means that they will not be able to gain energy for the first 6 seconds of the fight. And of course, after the 6 seconds, it will keep applying stun for the duration of the fight and applying damage as well. The damage doesn't really matter since it is being used on a support or a defense, so they don't have the high stats to apply the damage. However, the chance to apply stun is pretty much decent, and we're gonna take a look at the reports to see how many seconds of stun that No Escape applied. Of course, if the enemy have Fighting Master, that means that they will not be either silenced or stunned. And Assist to protect Merlin from taking any damage, since we need Merlin healthy at all times since he's the main damage dealer. Oaking Guard, pretty much similar to Resist. However, Resist counters the magical damage. Oaking Guard counters the physical damage. Alright, so this is the March, and of course he's using a Water Dragon. In the previous video, I showed that the guy was using a Fire Dragon, which helped to increase the critical damage for Merlin. However, in this situation, he's using a Water Dragon, which he can make use of this skill, which is Spring Spell. Whenever your immortals inflict skill damage, all your water immortals get plus 3% damage up to 5 stacks. That means that Merlin can get up to 15% damage increase, which is something that you cannot get from the Fire Dragon. And of course, you can make use of the healing skill. This one here, it does so much heals if you're not up against someone who's using wounds, which is pretty much a lot of people are using wounds nowadays. And Ice Breath, if you're lucky enough, you can apply control to 2 units, leaving them unable to act or recover energy for more than 11 seconds, up to 12 seconds, I think, at max level if you're in the legendary season. So the water dragon is not the best, I think, but still you can make use of this skill here. So I don't think there's so much difference between the water dragon and the fire dragon in this specific march if you're using a Merlin as your damage dealer. Here's a couple of battle reports. He just replied to me. Worst free-to-play beginner setup tutorial incoming. Anyway, let's take a look at the battle reports he showed. And these are not some random battle reports. The guys against him, I even lose to Omega sometimes. He's using a very powerful Jinkies march. He got energy mastery at level 8, and he got time to shine, which is a very OP skill to use on a physical damage dealer. And of course, fighting master. He's using Theodora. He got Spring of Life, Wine Undyne, and Assist. And he's using Purn, and he got Master Aegis. Master Aegis is very powerful against this march, since it reduces menace damage by 25%. And he got El Cid. El Cid reduces the physical damage inflicted on the front row. So I think El Cid is not the best option in this scenario here. He could change El Cid for Yi Chen, which could be so much better, or any other Immortal. I don't think El Cid is that much powerful. El Cid is only useful against the Mixed March or the Alex Yi Chen March. Anyway, let's take a look at the damage, and you can see Merlin did almost 50 million damage with a 92% crit rate from Prophecy and 69% Annihilation from crit rate from Annihilation and 86% from Chase. This is a very high crit rate in case he got his dragon nodes maxed out. If he got the dragon nodes maxed out, that means he got a very high resilience. I mean, Purn got almost more than 4k resilience here. El Cid got almost 4k. So it is pretty much, yeah, pretty much similar to this guy, but he got, yeah, he got a very high resilience here. Anyway, this is how the march looks like, and there is so much heals or shields, that means damage blocked, from Stardy Barrier, from Ragnar, 5 million damage blocked, and of course the damage from No Escape, I mean the control from No Escape. This is the silence, that means 3 immortals were silenced for the first 6 seconds. That means it was Purn, El Cid, Theodora, and of course Jinkies was not silenced since he's using Fighting Master. And No Escape stun. This is the stun that has been applied from No Escape. It did 18 seconds in 43 seconds. This is not bad. I mean, we only use the skill mainly for the first silence, for the first 6 seconds silence. However, the stun that comes later is a nice bonus, so I wouldn't mind it. And this is the second report that we have. It was against a similar march. However, this guy is using Yi Chen, he's using Purn, and he's using Zenopia, and of course he's using Jinkies Khan with the same skills, Energy Mastery level 8 and Time to Shine. And by the way, I lose to this guy sometimes in Arena as well. He's using Weakening Curse, he's using Malice. This is a good report to look at, even though he lost a lot of troops here. He lost a lot of troops. He lost a lot of troops against this march, and he lost a lot of troops against this march as well. This is still a big win considering he got a red skill at level 8. And not only just any red skill, he got the best one out of all the red skills in the Tower of Knowledge. And this is the damage came from Merlin. It is a little bit less since the march was not at full troops. And of course the control from No Escape, as usual, 3 attempts at the Immortals that does not have any kind of immunity to the control, and the stuns 3 attempts at 9 seconds, and the Stardy Barrier at 7.5 million damage absorbed. What about the crit rate? 43% crit rate here. This is a bit lower than the previous report since this guy is using Malice, reducing Merlin's crit rate by 20%, and Annihilation 45% Chase. I think this is pretty much still a decent crit rate. It is almost 50%, even though he's using Malice, and his artifact provides resilience rate. So this is actually huge. Almost 50% crit rate is still very nice. And he's using Master Ages as well. Master Ages is probably one of the best counters against magical damage. So I think he did great here. However, he lost the fight since there was another march here. Still, this is pretty much a decent march to build. It requires a bit of grinding though to finish Ragnar and to finish Yi and Chen. These immortals are a bit expensive compared to the other free-to-play immortals that I showed in my previous video. However, with a bit of grinding, with a bit of focusing on this march here, if you'd like to build it, I think it is still doable. If there any room of improvement, in my opinion, I think you can get Artemisia instead of Ken Emperor and try it out. I haven't actually tried it out myself or seen enough reports for Artemisia. However, on papers, I think that Artemisia could be better than Ken Emperor in some situations though. However, if you're up against a heavily march with heals, if you're up against a march that have a heavy heals, I think Ken Emperor is still better since you get enough damage amplifying from Ragnar Lothbrok because he increases Merlin's damage by 30%. If you would like to take this march to the next level, then you can get a real skill for Merlin, either infinite firepower, or in my opinion, I think energy mastery would be better. That of course, if you would like to take this march to the next level, so either energy mastery or infinite firepower. In my opinion, I think energy mastery is way better. It is 10 times better than infinite firepower because infinite firepower is very limited. You can only use it on mages, so you can only use it in either Merlin or Himiko or Baldwin. However, if you got energy mastery, you can use it on mages and you can use it on ranged immortals. So if in the future you decided to build Genghis Khan, or you decided to build a way better immortal that they release in the future, or in the near future you decided to get Apollo, I guess energy mastery will be so much better than infinite firepower. You have so many options to use energy mastery. And by the way, I use energy mastery on my Yushitsuon against the Rift Breaker. Here's a report. Yushitsuon did more than 1 billion damage in this fight. So that's why I still prefer energy mastery. Anyway, this was all for this one. Hopefully you guys like this kind of content. If you have any ideas for the future contents, make sure to mention it down below in the comments. I read all the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. I think out of 80% of my viewers are not non-subscriber to the channel. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you again for watching. I'll see you later.